One of the biggest draws in Delaware is its business court. What happens when that's not so great anymore? We'll talk to the Chamber of Commerce. This is the Delaware Way. Welcome to the Delaware Way. Delaware is no longer #1 in the country when it comes to business litigation, according to businessmen. That's a big deal. Here to explain why is Rich Heffron, who is the president of the Chamber of Commerce. I remember, thank you for being here, by the way.
Thank you, Larry.
I remember having Governor Markell here and asking why the state is attractive to businesses. And he said, #1, it's not taxes, not anything else you might think of. #1 is the fact that our courts and our laws favor businesses in litigation. So you've always been #1, year in and year out. All of a sudden, you drop from #1 to 11. That's a big deal, right?
Well, it is a big deal, and you have to find out exactly why. And that's one of the things that working with the corporate sector of the corporate lawyers and the corporate sector of the bar, we're going to sit down and work. What went on here? Why did we drop?
What happened? Is it the fact? I know you're still going to study this. I got the answer. But have other states seen what you've done and tried to replicate it to be competitive?
Oh, absolutely. And we know that. And you need to stay ahead of that curve. And you can't blame them. I mean, that's the way the world works. It's a competitive world. But we still have the best chancery court in the country, court of equity for corporations, for decisions. We know one of the things I think that's hurt us is cheat. When we went to companies and asked them, how much have you paid in this cheat or have you paid in this cheat, and went back as long as 30 years to determine how much they owed us. I think that hurt. It's
interesting that you said when I asked about competition, you're right, and we've always tried to stay ahead of that curve. If you believe this poll, if you believe this list, you haven't stayed ahead of the curve. I don't mean you personally, but you understand what I'm saying. So where was the failure?
We've talked to people at the U.S. Chamber. I think some of it has to do with legislature and some legislation that is not only when it passes, sometimes just that it's considered. So we have to look at that. I talked about a cheat. We'll look at it and we'll get it fixed.
So there has been anti-business legislation that even when it's considered?
I don't know if it's anti-business, but it's not as favorable as maybe some people would like it to be.
One of the most important things the Chamber of Commerce does, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, is lobbying.
Yes. Lobbying
the government. And so when you lobby the government now, do you use this list and say, look what happened, you have to fix this?
Absolutely, but once again, we're not going to be critical. We're going to sit down with the people who in that area of the law, the corporate bar, and we're going to find out, okay, what exactly happened here and how do we correct it, which I think we will.
So we don't know that yet?
No.
You're
not clear on everything. I mean, we have some idea, but we want to sit down and have a positive discussion.
When is that going to happen? When can we have you back? When will we know that?
Within the next couple months.
So once you get that, what do you do with that information?
Well, then we sit down and we work with the corporate bar. If there's changes we need to make in the law or the things that we need to do better, we'll go to the governor and to the legislature and we'll move ahead with it.
Now, I phrased it as a big deal at the top.
Yeah.
How important is it for the state to be #1, as they always have been? How important is it for the state to get back up there? Can you put that in a monetary figure?
It's always important to be #1. I don't know what the monetary figure is. But the fact of the matter is, if you ask them what's the best court in the world to do business, for businesses, it's still our Chancery Court.
So I know you've given a little bit of specifics.
Well, there are more factors than that go into this decision. I mean, we've talked to the U.S. Chamber, and we need to.
Isn't it? There was a part of it was class action lawsuits, right? Part of it's mediation. Part of it's there's a lot of things I understand that get away from the Chancery Court. But something big must have happened. What I guess I'm getting at, I know you keep saying you want to survey them.
Big. I think there are a lot of small things.
Really?
And they add up.
So easily fixable things?
Yes. I mean, we've already started fixing this cheat problem. We started that 2 years ago. We'll get that fixed. We'll look at the legislation that's been passed and legislation that's been introduced and figure out which ones might have caused the problem.
Legislation. You're blaming Dover for this?
I'm not blaming them. Sometimes people don't understand, and sometimes you get a wake-up call.
So it's your job to help them understand
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
And you'll
Absolutely.
be doing that.
Yes.
If I can switch topics for 1 second, I want to talk about Amazon. You know, I do shows in some other states as well, and everybody believes they can get
Absolutely.
Amazon. Everybody's making a play to get Amazon. It's their second headquarters. It's 50,000 jobs. It can change for some place like Delaware, especially. It would completely change the economy here. What are the realistic chances of Delaware getting Amazon?
We're one in however many other people there are. That is our chance. We have it. I understand they've identified an area where they could go. It doesn't mean they will. And if nothing else, the exercise is important. Plus, Amazon, if they go somewhere else, they're also going to have some regional headquarters. So we'll be in line for that. You know, we have as good a chance as anybody else. Depends what they want, where they want to be. We meet some of the factors they laid out. Some we don't, and every other place is just the same.
With the factors they laid out, you are near some world-class universities. You're right off I-95. You're close to the Philadelphia International Airport and to the airport in Baltimore. So you've got all that going for you. Can you offer the incentives in this state that other states can offer?
And that's not what we can do. Look, I think what did the land talk about, $3 billion? That's the size of our budget. No, we couldn't do that. But we think there are some things that are more important to them than just the money itself. We give them some tax incentive and other things. For 50,000 jobs, you can afford to do that. But obviously, we can't put $3 billion on the table, and we wouldn't do that. There are other reasons to be here. You know, just like you said, we're close to the airport. We're close to, we're in the Northeast Corridor. We're close to New York, we're close to Philadelphia, we're close to Baltimore, we're close to Washington. We have, they want rail, we have rail.
One thing you have too that I think can't be undersold is the fact that you still have human beings that are making this decision. And these are human beings that make a lot of money. They're executives. And they're going to go to certain areas and they'll have high property taxes. They're going to have high income taxes. They have high estate taxes. They have all these taxes, sales taxes. I would think that personally you can appeal to them and say, for you personally and your family, we're a good state to be in.
It's quality of life. You just made the argument for me, and I was going to get to that next. This is a reasonably priced place to live. You can buy a nice house here for a lot less than you can in a lot of the other places they're looking at. Quality of life is good here, and you can get to any place in the country from here.
Well, when you negotiate, I'd like to go with you, if I can be there. Thanks a lot, sir. I really appreciate it. Always coming back. Rich Heffron, the president of the Chamber of Commerce. When we come back, it is flu season once again. We'll give you your yearly reminder, plus what the state is doing to fight the opioid crisis when the Delaware Way continues.